I found my grandmother's secret recipe hidden in the walls of her old restaurant in Ouro Preto. It was for coxinhas, a traditional Brazilian snack. Fried dough filled with shredded chicken. Simple, common. You can find them anywhere in Brazil. But something was wrong with this recipe. The measurements were strange, the instructions were disturbing, the ingredients were coded, and next to the recipe, written in her shaky handwriting, was a single sentence: "God forgive me." I didn't know until it was too late. My grandmother died 3 months ago. She was 87 years old. She hadn't cooked in 26 years. She hadn't spoken about her restaurant in even longer. And in her final days, when the dementia took hold, she would wake up screaming about meat, about deliveries, about a man at the back door. The nurses thought it was just confusion, random fears from a deteriorating mind. But I knew my grandmother. She'd been the strongest woman I'd ever known. And whatever had broken her in 1997 wasn't random. It was specific, it was real, and it was hidden in the walls of the restaurant she'd abandoned. My name is Lucas Ferreira. I'm 46 years old. I'm a chef. I've worked in restaurants in São Paulo, Rio, even spent 5 years in New York. I've made my living understanding food, understanding recipes, understanding how ingredients come together to create something people love. But I never understood my grandmother. She raised me after my parents died when I was 8. She taught me to cook. She showed me how to season, how to taste, how to feel when a dish is right. And then, in 1997, she stopped. Just stopped. Closed her restaurant overnight, fired all the staff, locked the doors, and never explained why. I was 19, about to start culinary school. I asked her what happened. She wouldn't talk about it. She just said some recipes should never be made again. I thought she was being dramatic. I thought maybe the business had failed. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she'd just decided it was time to retire. I moved on with my life, built my career, and tried not to think about the restaurant that had been such a huge part of my childhood. Till 3 months ago, when she died and left me everything, including the building. The restaurant is in the historic center of Ouro Preto, on a narrow cobblestone street near the Igreja de São Francisco de Assis. It's a small building, 2 stories, colonial architecture. The ground floor was the restaurant. The second floor was where my grandmother lived. She moved out in 1997 and never went back. For 26 years, the building sat empty, locked, untouched. She paid the property taxes, she kept the utilities on minimum, but she never sold it, never rented it, never even opened the door. When I inherited it, I had to hire a locksmith. The keys had been lost decades ago. The door was swollen from humidity. We had to force it open. Inside, everything was exactly as it had been the day she closed. Tables still set, plates still in the cabinets, pots still hanging in the kitchen. A thick layer of dust covered everything. The air smelled of mold and decay, but underneath that I could still smell it. The smell of cooking, of frying oil, of spices, the smell of my childhood. I spent the first week just cleaning, throwing out anything that had rotted or become unusable, boxing up plates and utensils, cataloging what could be saved. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the place. Reopen it maybe, turn it into something new, honor my grandmother's legacy. On the 8th day, I started working on the kitchen. The walls were in bad shape, water damage, cracks in the plaster. I decided to strip everything down to the brick and start fresh. I was pulling down a section of wall behind the industrial stove when I found it. A metal box, about the size of a shoebox, wedged into a cavity between the bricks. It had been deliberately hidden, plastered over. Someone had gone to significant effort to make sure it stayed concealed. I pulled it out and sat on the floor. The box wasn't locked. Inside were papers, receipts, invoices, photographs, and a recipe card, handwritten. my grandmother's writing. The recipe was titled Coxinha Especial da Casa, Receita Original, 1995. I read it 3 times before I understood what I was looking at. The ingredients were listed in code, not obvious code, but subtle changes. Where it should say frango, chicken, it said carne especial, special meat. Where it should specify measurements, it used vague terms. Cantidade suficiente, sufficient quantity. The instructions were even stranger. Preparar a carne com cuidado extremo. Não questionar a origem. Não inspecionar muito de perto. Prepare the meat with extreme care. Do not question the origin. Do not inspect too closely. And then, at the bottom, in different ink, like it had been added later, Deus me perdoe. Eu não sabia até que fosse tarde demais. God forgive me. I didn't know until it was too late. I set the recipe aside and looked at the other papers. There were invoices from a supplier, no company name, just a signature. Z. Ferreira, no relation to my family, despite the same last name. The invoices were dated between March 1995 and August 1997. They listed deliveries of carne de caça especial, special game meat, wild boar, venison, exotic cuts, premium prices, delivered to the back door of the restaurant every 2 weeks. There were also photographs, Polaroids, faded with age. They showed the restaurant during what must have been its peak, the dining room full, well-dressed customers. Politicians, I recognized a few faces, business people, tourists, everyone eating, everyone smiling, and on every table prominently displayed were plates of coxinhas. Golden, perfect, the specialty of the house. I found a newspaper clipping from 1996, a review of the restaurant. The critic raved about everything, but especially about the coxinhas. "Unlike anything I've ever tasted," the review said. "The meat is tender, flavorful, with a richness that's almost indescribable. Ferreira's restaurant has created something truly special. These are not ordinary coxinhas. These are culinary art." I felt sick, not because of what I was reading, not yet, but because I remembered those coxinhas. I'd eaten them. As a child, as a teenager, I'd eaten dozens of them. They were my favorite thing my grandmother made. She only served them to special customers, she'd said, but she always made extra for me, always saved me 2 or 3. And she was right. They were incredible, the best I'd ever had. Even now, almost 30 years later, I could remember the taste. Rich, savory, complex, unlike any chicken I'd had before or since. I sat in that dusty kitchen, holding those papers, and felt my stomach turn, because I was starting to understand, and I didn't want to. I spent the rest of that day searching the building, looking for more clues, more evidence, anything that would tell me I was wrong, that my imagination was running wild, that there was a reasonable explanation. In my grandmother's bedroom upstairs, I found more. A drawer in her nightstand, locked. I forced it open. Inside was a journal, small, leather-bound, every page filled with her handwriting. The first entry was dated March 15th, 1995. A new supplier came today, said his name was Zay, said he had access to special meats. Game, wild caught, things you can't get through normal channels. The prices were high, but he said the quality was unmatched. I was skeptical, but business has been slow. We need something special, something to bring customers back. I ordered a trial batch. He'll deliver next week. The entries continued, documenting the deliveries, documenting how she prepared the meat, how she incorporated it into her recipes, how customers responded. The coxinhas are a hit. Everyone loves them. They want to know the secret. I tell them it's the seasoning, but really it's the meat. Zay was right. This is unlike anything else. Tender, flavorful, almost sweet. I don't know what he's hunting, but it's extraordinary. By late 1995, the special coxinhas had become the signature dish. People came from other cities just to try them, reservations weeks in advance. My grandmother was thriving. The restaurant was more successful than it had ever been. But then, in early 1996, the tone of the journal changed. A customer asked me today what kind of meat is in the coxinhas. I told her it was chicken, a special breed. She said it didn't taste like chicken. She said it tasted like something else, richer, almost like pork, but not quite. I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled and said it was my secret recipe. But later, I asked Zay, "What exactly are you supplying me?" He got angry, said I was questioning his integrity, said if I didn't trust him, he'd find another restaurant. I apologized. I can't lose this supplier. The customers expect the coxinhas now. Without Zay's meat, I'd have to take them off the menu. I can't afford that. The entries became more anxious, more uncertain. I tried to prepare the meat myself today. Usually Zay delivers it already butchered, cleaned, ready to cook. But this time, there was a piece that still had skin attached. Strange skin, not like boar, not like deer, smooth, almost like... I don't want to think about it. I threw that piece away, used the rest. But I can't stop thinking about it. And then, in August 1997, everything fell apart. The journal entry from August 10th, 1997, was longer than the others. The handwriting was shaky, panicked. "I found something today in the delivery. Zay left it at the back door like always. I was unpacking the meat, separating the cuts, when I saw something in the bottom of the container. A piece of paper, wet, stained, but intact enough to read. It was an ID card, a driver's license, for a man named Roberto Andrade, from São Paulo. The photo showed a man in his 30s, smiling, normal, and the license was current, active. I stared at it for I don't know how long. Then I looked at the meat I'd been preparing, really looked at it, and I saw things I'd been ignoring. The texture, the color, the way it separated, the small details I'd been trained to notice as a chef, but had chosen not to see because I didn't want to know. I threw up in the sink. Then I threw all the meat away, all of it. Took it out to the dumpster in the alley. I wanted to burn it, but I couldn't risk drawing attention. Then I went upstairs and locked myself in my room. I don't know what to do. If I go to the police, what do I tell them? That I've been serving this meat for 2 years, that I fed it to hundreds of people, that I fed it to Lucas, to my neighbors, to city officials, to tourists. They'll arrest me. They'll charge me as an accomplice. Even if I didn't know, even if I was deceived, I'm the one who served it. I'm the one who cooked it. I'm the one who made it delicious. God help me. What have I done? The next entry was dated August 12th, 1997. Zay came to the restaurant today. I told him I knew. I showed him the ID card. He didn't deny it. He just looked at me calmly and said, "You knew the whole time. Maybe not consciously, but you knew. You're a trained chef. You know meat. You knew this wasn't game. And you kept cooking it because business was good, because customers loved it, because you were making money. Don't act innocent now." I told him I was going to the police. He laughed. He said, "Oh, go ahead. Tell them. Tell them you've been serving human flesh for 2 years. Tell them you made it into coxinhas and fed it to their families. See how that works out for you." Then he left. I haven't seen him since. I don't know what to do. If I stay silent, I'm protecting a murderer. If I speak, I destroy myself, destroy the memory of this restaurant, destroy everything I've built, and the people who ate here, they'll know. They'll know what they consumed. Some of them will have eaten. I can't even think about it. I've decided. I'm closing the restaurant. Today. I'll tell everyone it's for personal reasons. I'll lock the doors and never come back. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to forget. But I know I never will. That was the last entry. After that, the pages were blank. I sat on my grandmother's bed and read the journal 3 times. Then I put it down and tried to breathe, tried to process what I'd learned. My grandmother had been tricked, deceived. She'd trusted a supplier who'd been delivering human flesh. And when she'd discovered the truth, she'd been trapped. Speaking out would destroy her. Staying silent would protect a serial killer. She'd chosen silence, and it had eaten her alive for 26 years. I understood now why she'd stopped cooking, why she'd never spoken about the restaurant, why she'd woken up screaming in her final days. She'd been carrying that guilt, that horror, alone for more than 2 decades. And now it was mine. I went back downstairs to the kitchen and started searching for anything else, any other clues about Zay, about who he was, about what happened to him. In a drawer near the back door, I found a delivery log, a notebook where my grandmother had tracked incoming supplies. There were entries for Zay's deliveries, dates, times, amounts, and at the bottom of the last page, a note. Zay stopped delivering August 12, 1997. No contact since. Phone number disconnected. Address was fake. No trace. She tried to find him. After he left, after she closed the restaurant, she must have tried to track him down. But he disappeared. Completely. Like he'd never existed. I pulled out my laptop and started searching. First, I looked for unsolved disappearances in Minas Gerais between 1995 and 1997. I found dozens. Brazil's missing persons database from that era was incomplete, poorly maintained. But even the incomplete records showed patterns, people vanishing from bus stations, from hostels, from remote hiking trails, tourists, drifters, people passing through, people no one would immediately miss. Between 1994 and 1997, in the region surrounding Ouro Preto, at least 15 people had disappeared without a trace. Most were men, ages 25 to 45. None were from Ouro Preto itself. They were from São Paulo, Rio, Belo Horizonte. Other countries, backpackers, travelers. I found the name from the ID card my grandmother had discovered, Roberto Andrade. Disappeared July 1997. Last seen in Ouro Preto. He'd been staying at a hostel, planning to spend a few days visiting the historic churches. He'd told the hostel owner he was going for a walk. Never came back. His family filed a missing person report. Police investigated briefly. Found nothing. Case went cold. Roberto Andrade had been 32 years old. He'd been an accountant. He'd had a wife and a baby daughter, and he'd ended up in coxinhas served at my grandmother's restaurant. I closed my laptop and sat in the dark. I felt like I was drowning. This wasn't just a story. This wasn't just history. This was my family, my grandmother, the restaurant where I'd learned to cook, the food I'd eaten and loved, the taste I still remembered. I called the police the next day. I told them I needed to report information about unsolved cases from the 1990s. They sent a detective. An older man, maybe 60, named Detective Silva. He arrived at the restaurant in the afternoon. I showed him everything, the recipe, the journal, the invoices, the ID card which was still in the metal box, sealed in a plastic bag my grandmother had put it in. He listened. He read. He examined everything carefully. Then he sat down at one of the dusty tables and was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "I remember this restaurant. I ate here once, back in '96. Those coxinhas. Everyone talked about them." He looked at me. "You understand what you're telling me? You understand the implications?" I nodded. My grandmother didn't know. Not until August 1997. She was a victim in this too. "Maybe," he said, "but proving that will be difficult. Everyone involved is dead or disappeared. Your grandmother is gone. This Zay character vanished 26 years ago. The evidence you have is circumstantial, a journal, some invoices, an ID card that could have gotten into that delivery by accident." "It wasn't an accident," I said. "You read the journal. He was delivering human meat for 2 years. "And I believe you," he said, "but believing and proving are different things. We'd need to exhume bodies. We'd need forensic evidence. We'd need to find Zay or find evidence of his crimes. And even if we did all that, what happens to the people who ate here? What do we tell them? I hadn't thought about that, about the customers, about the hundreds of people who'd eaten those coxinhas, about the psychological damage of learning what they'd consumed. Detective Silva continued, "In cases like this, we have to weigh the benefit of disclosure against the harm. Your grandmother made a choice in 1997. She chose to stay silent to protect those people from knowing. Was that the right choice? I don't know. But reopening this now, 26 years later, what does it accomplish? We might never find Zay. We might never solve those disappearances. But we will traumatize hundreds of people. We will destroy your grandmother's reputation. And for what? For justice, I said. For the families of the people who disappeared." He nodded slowly. "That's a good reason. But let me ask you something. Are you prepared for what comes next? When this goes public, and it will, if we open an official investigation, your name will be attached to it, your family name, your career as a chef. Everything will be connected to this. Are you ready for that?" I didn't have an answer. Detective Silva left with copies of everything. He said he'd consult with his superiors. He'd look into the old missing persons cases. He'd see what could be done. But he warned me, this might go nowhere. Cold cases from the 90s, minimal evidence, main suspect long gone. Don't get your hopes up. I spent the next week in the restaurant, unable to leave, unable to stop searching. I went through every drawer, every cabinet, every box, looking for more evidence, more proof, something that would make the decision easier. In the storage room, behind old flour sacks and cooking oil containers, I found another box, smaller. Inside were more Polaroids. These were different. They weren't of customers. They were of the kitchen, specifically of the meat. My grandmother had documented it. Before she knew what it was, she'd taken photos, maybe proud of the quality she was working with. The photos showed cuts of meat on the prep table. And now, knowing what I knew, I could see it. The texture, the color, the way the muscle fibers ran. This wasn't game. This wasn't any animal I'd ever worked with in my career. This was human. I could see it now. As a professional chef, I'd butchered hundreds of animals. Chicken, beef, pork, lamb, fish. You learn to recognize the structure, the way flesh separates, the fat distribution, the color of the muscle. This was human, and my grandmother had known on some level. That's why she'd hidden these photos. That's why she'd written, "Don't inspect too closely" in the recipe. Because if you looked closely, if you really looked, you knew. That night, I had a nightmare. I was back in my childhood, 8 years old, sitting at the kitchen counter in the restaurant. My grandmother handed me a plate with 2 coxinhas, still hot, golden brown, perfect. I bit into one. The taste flooded my mouth, rich, savory, delicious. And in the dream, I knew what I was eating, but I kept eating anyway, because it was so good. I woke up at 3 in the morning, sweating, nauseous. I ran to the bathroom and threw up, even though I hadn't eaten anything in hours. The memory of the taste was still there, still vivid after almost 30 years. And now it was contaminated, ruined, turned into something horrifying. Detective Silva called 2 weeks later. He said they'd looked into it. They'd reviewed the old missing persons cases. They'd tried to trace the supplier, this Zay Ferreira. Nothing. No records. The phone number from the invoices had been disconnected in 1997. The address was fake, just a P.O. box that had been closed. The signature on the invoices didn't match any Zay Ferreira in their databases. Whoever he was, Silva said, he covered his tracks perfectly. He used a common name, probably fake. He operated on cash. He left no trace. And frankly, after 26 years, even if we found him, prosecution would be nearly impossible. The evidence has degraded. The witnesses are gone. Your grandmother is dead. It's a dead end. So that's it, I said. We just let it go. I'm sorry, he said. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear, but sometimes cases stay unsolved. Sometimes the guilty don't get caught. That's the reality. What about the families, the people who disappeared? I've made notes in those case files. If anything ever comes up, if Zay ever surfaces, this will be there. But I can't officially reopen investigations based on a journal and some old photos. I'd need more, and there is no more. After he hung up, I sat in the empty restaurant and realized I had a choice to make. The same choice my grandmother had faced in 1997. I could go public, I could talk to journalists, I could post everything online, make noise, force attention. But what would that accomplish? Zay would still be gone. The families would still have no closure. And hundreds of people who'd eaten at this restaurant, would learn something that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Or I could stay silent, lock the evidence away, demolish the restaurant, bury the secret. Let my grandmother rest without her name being destroyed. Let those customers live without knowing. I spent 3 days thinking about it, not sleeping, barely eating, just thinking. On the 3rd day, I made my decision. I burned it, all of it, the recipe, the journal, the invoices, the photographs. I took everything out to a metal barrel in the alley behind the restaurant and set it on fire. I watched it burn until there was nothing left but ash. Then I scattered the ash. The only thing I kept was the ID card, Roberto Andrade. I couldn't burn that. It felt too much like erasing him completely. I sealed it in an envelope and put it in my safety deposit box at the bank. Someday, maybe I'll send it to his family, not with explanation. Just returning something lost. Let them wonder how I found it. Then I hired a demolition company. I told them I wanted the building torn down, all of it. The restaurant, the upstairs apartment, everything. They tried to talk me out of it. The building was historic, colonial architecture. It could be restored. It could be valuable. I didn't care. I wanted it gone. It took them 3 weeks. I watched as they stripped everything away. The walls where I'd found the metal box. The kitchen where my grandmother had cooked. The dining room where hundreds of people had eaten. All of it reduced to rubble. When it was done, the lot was empty. Just bare ground. I sold it to a developer. I don't know what they'll build there. I don't care, as long as it's not a restaurant. I left Ouro Preto the day the sale closed. I drove back to São Paulo and tried to return to my life. But it's not the same. Nothing is the same. I'm still a chef. I still cook. But I can't make coxinhas. Can't even look at them. When I see them in bakeries or restaurants, I feel sick. I know that's irrational. I know most coxinhas are normal. Chicken, beef, cheese, normal ingredients. But I can't separate the food from the memory, from the knowledge of what I ate as a child, from the taste that's still there in the back of my mind whenever I think about it. I've thought about quitting cooking entirely, finding a different career. But cooking is all I know. It's what my grandmother taught me. And despite everything, despite what she served, despite what she was tricked into doing, she was still a brilliant chef. She taught me to taste, to season, to understand food. That knowledge is real, even if it came from a contaminated source. 6 months after I left Ouro Preto, I got a message, anonymous, sent to my professional email. No name, no subject line, just a message. You didn't look hard enough. He's still out there, and he's still cooking. I stared at that message for an hour, then I deleted it. I don't know if it was real. I don't know if it was someone who'd heard about my grandmother's restaurant and was messing with me. I don't know if it was Zay himself, watching, taunting. I don't know, and I can't let myself think about it, because if it's true, if he's still out there, still operating, then my silence helped him. My decision to burn the evidence, to bury the secret, it protected him. It let him continue. But what else could I have done? Go public with no proof, ruin lives for nothing, traumatize hundreds of people when there's no way to catch him anyway. I tell myself I made the right choice. The same choice my grandmother made, the choice to contain the damage, to protect the innocent, even if it means letting the guilty go free. But late at night, when I can't sleep, I wonder. I wonder how many others there were, How many people Zay killed between 1995 and 1997? How many bodies are still out there, in shallow graves in the mountains around Ouro Preto? How many families are still waiting for answers? And I wonder if he really did stop in 1997, or if he just moved on. Found another restaurant, another chef, another city. I've looked occasionally when the guilt gets too strong. I've searched for similar patterns in other cities. Disappearances, restaurants with mysterious suppliers, specialty dishes that people rave about. I haven't found anything concrete, but I've found whispers, urban legends, stories that sound too similar to be coincidence. A restaurant in Tiradentes that closed suddenly in 2003. A street vendor in Diamantina who disappeared in 2010 after police started asking questions about his meat source. A food truck in Mariana that was shut down in 2018, the owner fleeing before health inspectors could finish their investigation. Maybe I'm seeing patterns where there are none. Maybe I'm paranoid. Or maybe Zay is still out there. Still hunting, still cooking, still serving, and people are still eating, still enjoying, still raving about the taste. Because that's the horrible truth I learned, the reason my grandmother's restaurant was so successful. The reason those coxinhas were so beloved. They were good, genuinely, objectively good, the best I've ever had. And that's the thought that haunts me most. Not that it happened, not that my grandmother was tricked, but that we all loved it, that we all kept coming back for more, that given the choice, even knowing what we know, part of us would still want to taste it again. I still have nightmares. 2 or 3 times a week, always the same. I'm back in that restaurant, 8 years old. My grandmother hands me a plate. I bite into the coxinha, and this time I know. I know exactly what I'm eating, but I can't stop. I keep eating, because it's delicious. I wake up with the taste in my mouth, ghost taste, memory taste, the taste of something that shouldn't exist. Last month, I did something I swore I wouldn't do. I went back to Ouro Preto. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see the empty lot, to confirm the restaurant was really gone. I drove there on a Tuesday, middle of the week, not many tourists. I parked a few blocks away and walked to where the restaurant used to be. There's a new building there now, modern, glass and steel, completely different from the colonial structure that was there before. It's a boutique hotel, expensive, catering to wealthy tourists. I stood across the street and stared at it, wondering if the guests knew what used to be there, if anyone remembered, if anyone cared. Probably not. The restaurant had been closed for 26 years before I demolished it. Most people had forgotten it existed. That's how things disappear. Not suddenly. Gradually, people forget, memories fade, and eventually, it's like it never happened. I was about to leave when I noticed something, a restaurant on the ground floor of the new hotel, small, upscale, and displayed in the window on a gold stand was a menu. I crossed the street to look. The restaurant specialized in contemporary Brazilian cuisine. Modern takes on traditional dishes. And there, third item on the menu, coxinha de carne especial, chef's special recipe, award-winning. My blood went cold. I went inside. The hostess greeted me. I asked about the coxinha. She smiled. "Oh, it's amazing. Our chef has a secret recipe. The meat is unlike anything you've ever tasted. We've won awards. People come from all over just to try it. Would you like a table?" I heard my voice, distant, say, "Who's the chef?" "Chef Ferreira," she said. "He's been with us since we opened. Trained in Europe, actually. But he's originally from Minas. He really understands traditional flavors. Ferreira. The same last name as my grandmother. The same last name as Zay. It's a common name in Brazil, one of the most common. It could be coincidence, it probably is coincidence, but I couldn't breathe. I mumbled something about coming back another time and left. I sat in my car for an hour, shaking, trying to decide what to do. I should go back in. I should ask to meet the chef. I should see his face, confirm it's not him. It can't be him. Zay would be in his 70s by now at least. He wouldn't still be cooking. He wouldn't be so bold as to open a restaurant in the exact same location. It's impossible. But what if it's not? What if the message I received 6 months ago was real? What if he's been out there this whole time, just more careful, more sophisticated? What if he never stopped? I started the car. I drove back to São Paulo, and I've been trying to forget about it for the last month, trying to tell myself it was nothing, coincidence, paranoia, but I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop wondering, and part of me, the part that makes me hate myself, is curious about the taste, about whether it's the same, about whether Chef Ferreira's special recipe is really special. I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to eat there. I'm not going to investigate. I've already made my choice. I've already decided to bury this secret. But the knowledge is there now, sitting in my mind, waiting. And I know that one day, maybe months from now, maybe years, I won't be able to resist. I'll go back to Ouro Preto. I'll eat at that restaurant, and I'll taste those coxinhas. Because I need to know. I need to know if the taste is the same. And God help me, I need to know if I'll be able to tell the difference. My name is Lucas Ferreira. I'm 46 years old. I'm a chef. And I know something about food that I wish I didn't. I know that taste is neutral. Taste doesn't judge. Taste doesn't care about ethics or morality or the source of the ingredients. Taste only registers pleasure or displeasure. And the most horrifying thing I've ever learned is that some of the most delicious things in the world shouldn't exist. Given the right recipe, the right preparation, the right seasoning, anything can be made to taste good, even things that should revolt us, even things that should make us sick. We like to think we'd know. We like to think our bodies would reject it. Our instincts would warn us, but that's not true. We'd eat it, we'd enjoy it, we'd ask for seconds, because in the end, we're just animals, and animals eat what tastes good. The recipe is still in my head. I burned the card, but I remember it. Every ingredient, every measurement, every instruction. I could make it right now if I wanted to, if I had the right meat. I won't. I'll never cook it. I'll never even cook regular coxinhas. But the knowledge is there. The capability is there. And that's what scares me most. Not that Zay exists, not that he might still be out there, but that he's not unique, he's not special. He's just someone who crossed a line that most of us stay on the right side of, and that line is thinner than we think. I look at other chefs now and I wonder how many of them would do what Zay did, if they were desperate enough, if they were broken enough, if they convinced themselves it was justified. How many of us have that capacity? I don't have an answer. I just have the knowledge that I ate it, that hundreds of people ate it, that we all loved it, and that somewhere, maybe in Ouro Preto, maybe somewhere else, someone might still be serving it, and people are still eating, still enjoying, still oblivious. Because the horrible truth is this: you can't taste evil, you can only taste flavor, and sometimes the two have nothing to do with each other. God forgive my grandmother. God forgive me for staying silent. And God help anyone who ever tastes something they can't quite identify, something richer and more complex than they expected, something that makes them come back for more, even though something deep in their gut says something is wrong. Because by then, it's too late. You've already eaten it. You've already become part of the secret. And you'll carry that taste with you for the rest of your life, just like I do. Just like I always will.